On this, let's go now live to Brisbane and bring in the Minister for Emergency Management, Murray Watt. So as we heard there, perhaps it's not quite looking as bad as 2019, but we did hear in that year, why weren't we better prepared? How confident are you that no matter what the fire season brings this time around, we won't be saying, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that?
Well, good afternoon, Tom, and I'm actually speaking to you from the Australasian Fire Authorities Council conference that's being held in Brisbane, where we literally have thousands of people from around Australia coming together to discuss and prepare in exactly that way. We've taken a lot of steps as a relatively new federal government to make sure that we are much better prepared for fire seasons and other natural disasters than what we've seen federally before. We actually began preparations with the state and territory governments for this fire season before the last disaster season had even finished, because we knew we were likely to face a more serious fire season. I think there's also some other really important things that have changed nationally since the Black Summer fires. We've obviously now got one integrated national emergency management agency, rather than spreading those responsibilities across different portfolios and different ministers. We do have an additional large aerial fire tanker, a big water bomber, that's available compared to what we had in Black Summer, as well as many more helicopters to do the job as well. We have a new fire danger rating system to make it much easier to explain to people what the fire risk they might be facing in their community is. But the reality is we do need everyone to do their role here. Obviously, governments have got a role to play in being prepared. But as you heard from Rob Webb, the head of AFAC, we do need to make sure that communities and individuals are prepared and following and getting ready for a bushfire plan for themselves as well.
So you did say amongst that answer, as a relatively new government, are you preparing the ground there to be able to say afterwards there's only so much we can do in a short period of time, or are you saying we really are ready, whatever the season brings us?
Yeah, look, all of the advice to me, Tom, is that we are ready, and I noticed in the press conferences that the press conference that the Fire Commissioners held here this morning, they said that they felt they were as well prepared as they possibly could be. But, you know, obviously it depends on the nature of the fire season. They have prepared for a difficult fire season, getting the equipment on board that needs to be obtained, making sure that we have volunteers and paid personnel ready to go as well. It has been more difficult in some states to undertake hazard reduction this season because of the wet weather that we've had, and that has hampered that. But I know that a number of states are throwing extra resources at that to undertake even more burns before the fire season approaches. And I heard the Queensland Commissioner say this morning that Queensland has already taken a very large number of hazard reduction burns. So I feel confident that we've done everything that we possibly can. We'll obviously keep working with the states to make sure that's the case, but as I say, we also need community members to make sure that they're ready in their own properties as well. Okay, so despite the attempt, as you alluded to there, a lot of the hazard reduction burn has not been able to happen as much as you would have liked. The threat we're hearing about is grass fires. So do they tend to be faster moving, and does that mean when people are looking at their plans this summer, where previously they might have thought they had a certain amount of time to get out, it's a shorter amount of time, and they've got to sort of rethink timings around when they might leave? Yeah, grass fires do tend to move much more quickly than forest fires. Obviously, every fire is a different situation, but generally speaking, that's what happens, and they tend to be much more prevalent in rural areas as well. And if you look at that map that was released today from AFAC outlining where we're likely to see increased fire risk through spring, a lot of it is in inland Australia, in agricultural land. So what I've found, I guess being both Agriculture Minister and Emergency Management Minister, is that rural communities tend to really understand fire risk well. They have very good rural fire brigades with lots of community involvement, but I think it is going to be important right up until the fire season that those local communities are working with their local governments, their local fire brigades, to make sure they're doing everything they can and be ready for quite fast moving fires. Okay.
I suppose on that front as well, when we're looking at resources, you said one large extra aircraft. Is that the extent of it? Do we need to look at something more radical? Where you are there, the international approach, do we see a future, particularly out of what we've seen from, Canada and what's happening in the States as well, that more and more aircraft can shift different places around the world depending on the fire threat? We might have a much bigger arsenal down the track.
I think there's no doubt that with climate change and extending disaster seasons that we are seeing worldwide, that is at times putting pressure on different countries in terms of their ability to bring in extra aircraft from other countries, which is what's tended to happen in the past. It also puts pressure on our ability to bring in personnel from other countries, or our ability to lend personnel to other countries when we've got these overlapping fire and disaster seasons. But the advice to me has been very clear that we do have enough aircraft in place for the coming fire season, for the scale that we're expecting. And don't forget, as I say, that in addition to those large air tankers, the large planes, we have a very substantial number of heavy helicopters who do a great job in the water bombing. They actually can get in and out faster than big planes and refill water, drop fill more regularly than big planes, in addition to a large number of commercial aircraft as well. So when you put the fleet all together, large tankers, helicopters, smaller planes, the advice to me is that we are ready for this season, and I saw the Fire Commissioners confirm that this morning. But there's no doubt that as time goes on, that there is going to be increasing pressure, and we'll need to give consideration to that as a government.